Okay, this is video 404, Math 404, and you see a lot of things I've already written on the board here. And what I would recommend is that you just pause the video where you can see this and write this down. Make some notes of this, and then I'm going to go through and I'm going to explain it all for you. So go ahead and pause your video now and copy what you see on the board. Okay, so hopefully you've copied all of this down, and I'm going to explain this to you quickly, then I'm going to erase it and do a couple problems for you. The way that you may have done division before is you may have seen division like this, 6 divided by 3. And again, just like in the last video I told you, we're going to assume you know all of your multiplication tables, because if you don't know your multiplication tables, or your times tables, you're going to be in trouble with this video and all the math that comes in the future, because you really need to know those multiplication tables. So 6 divided by 3, you know, is 2. But we're going to learn to write it in this form, because later we're going to have some bigger numbers to deal with that we can't just easily look at and come up with the answer. So we're going to learn some steps to how we do some bigger numbers in division. So the 6 is called your dividend, your 3 is your divisor. You're basically trying to figure out how many times will this number go into this number. And your answer is called the quotient. So there's several steps for this. The first step is you're going to divide. So you're going to look at this and you're going to go, you're going to try to divide this 3 into 6. How many times will this 3 go into 6? Well, we know it'll go 2 times. So we're going to put our 2 there. Then we're going to multiply, and we're going to go 2 times 3. Well, I showed you that up here, 2 times 3, and we're going to bring our 6 there. Then we're going to subtract whatever number you come up here, which in this case is a 6. You're going to subtract this 6 from this 6, which is going to be a 0. And then we can compare the difference with the divisor. Okay? So this number should be less than this number. This number should be less than whatever number you have here. If not, then you made a mistake in your early division. And then if there is a next number, you bring it down. In this case, there's not another number to bring down. So that's where we're going with this. So I'm going to erase all this. I'm going to start with a new problem and show you kind of how this works. So I'm going to erase this up here. And erase this. I'm going to leave these words up here for you so you can see what these words are. So if I set up here, I'm going to go 8 divided by 4. Okay? 8 divided by 4. Well, the 8 is my dividend. I'm going to put it here. And dividing it by 4. Okay? My 4 is going to go out there. So the first thing I'm going to divide, 8 by 4. Well, do I know that? Yes, I know that. That's an easy one. So I can just say that's going to be 2. Then I'm going to multiply the 2 times the 4, and that's going to give me an 8. Then I'm going to subtract that 8, and that should be 0. And I'm going to compare the difference, the difference there. You remember 8, when you subtract numbers, your answer in subtraction is the difference, with the divisor. Well, this number needs to be smaller than this number, and it is. And if I have another number, I bring it down. I don't have another number yet. We'll do that in a moment. Let's do one more like that. So let's do, change this up here. Let's do one where we do have another number possibly. 12 divided by 3. Let's try that one. Now, I'm going to have 2 numbers in here now, 12, but I'm only going to have one number out here, 3. Now, when I divide this, the way I like to look at this is, will 3 go into 1? Well, 1, it won't go into 1. I can't divide the 1 by 3. So I'll go ahead and look at the second number. 12, it's a 12, 2, so 12, that's a 12 divided by 3. Well, I already know that's kind of 4, so I'm going to put 4 up here. Now, if I didn't know that was 4, you do some trial and error, and there's some other things to figure out we'll talk about later. But hopefully you know that, So 4 times 3 is 12. Now, I notice I put the 4, I didn't put it over the 1, because I didn't divide the 1 by the 3, I divided by the 12 by the 3. So I go to the last number, and so I line that up over the 2 there, okay? So 4 times 3 is 12, I subtract, it's 0. And you saw so far we always come up with 0 here. Later that will change, but for now that's what we come up with. Okay, so that is the basic way to do some division. Now, if we get a little bigger numbers, let me, I'm going to erase this now. Trying to leave our steps here so you can see our steps in just a moment. But let's go with a number like 525 divided by 5. No, let's not do this. Let's do let's make it a little easier. Let's go 125 divided by 5. 125 divided by 5. So I'm going to put 3 numbers here. 125. All right. Now 125, and I'm going to divide that by 5. Well, the first thing will 5 go into my 1, and it will not. So I could put a 0 there, but it really wouldn't mean anything. It'd be a placeholder. But 5 will go into 12. Now, what is 12 divided by 5? Well, that's not a straightforward standard answer. 10 divided by 5 is 2. 15 divided by 5 is 3. But what's 12 divided by 5? There's not an answer for that without there being what's called a remainder, which we're going to learn later. But so the way I like to look at it is how many times will 5 go into that 12 without going over? And it'll go 2 times. What's the most it will go into it without going over? Well, 2. Then so I divided that. Now I'm going to multiply. 2 times 5 is what? It's 10. Now I'm going to subtract, and when I subtract 10 from 12, I end up with 2. Now, I don't have a 0 here like I had before, but it's important that this number is smaller than this number. If this number was bigger than this number, that means I made a mistake here, and I'll show you what would happen. I know I can do it wrong. I'm just going to put a 1 here. I'm going to put a 1 right there in that place. And I'm going to go 1 times 5. And we have 1 times 5, 1 times 5 is 5. I would put that there. Then I would subtract my 5 from my 12. Well, if I do that, I'm going to end up with 7. Well, 7's bigger than 5, so it's not going to work. That's a problem. So that's why I say it's got to be the biggest number. The most times this number will go into this number without going over. And if I would have used 3, if I'd have tried to use 3 here, 3 times 5 is 15. Well, I would have brought 15 down here. Well, I go to try to subtract, and I've got a problem. I'm trying to subtract 15 from 12. That doesn't work either. It's too big. So it has to be the largest number without going over. And in this case, it's a 2. So I put my 2. I line it up right over that 2. 2 times 5 is 10. I subtract, and that gives me a 2. Okay, so now down here I've subtracted. Now I'm going to compare the difference. Well, that is smaller than that, so that's good. Now I'm to step 5, which we haven't had before. Bring down the next number. Well, notice I have a 5 here. I'm not going to subtract it from anything or add. I'm just going to drop it down. I'm going to bring it down here next to that 2 that I already have. And then I'm going to go back to my steps again. I start over. 5 will go into 25. How many? I'm going to divide it. Well, I know that 5 will go into 25. I know it'll go 5 times. So I'm going to put my 5 up here. Then I'm going to go 5 times 5. I'm going to multiply, I'm going to get my 25, and then I'm going to subtract, and when I subtract 25 from 25, I get 0. I compare the difference, I know, well, that is smaller than that, of course it's a 0, and there's no more numbers to bring down, so I'm finished. And that's the end of that problem. Okay, let's do another one like that. I'm going to try to just erase these so that you can kind of see how all this works. All right, so let's do a number that may not be quite so even. Let's do, we'll do 5 again, and we'll do 420. 420 divided by 5. So I'm going to put my 420 in here. This is my dividend. I'm dividing it by 5, the divisor. Okay? 5 will go in, it will not go into 4. 5 is bigger than 4. So I have to go to the next number. Okay? So 5 will go into 42. Well, there's not an even number that it'll go into, but what's the largest number that I can use for 5 to go into 42? So I go 5 times 5 is what, 25. Well, I can probably go bigger than that. 5 times 6 is 30. 5 times 7 is 35. 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times 9 is 45. Oops, that's too big. Okay, so 9 would be too big. 5 times 8 was 40. So it's going to go 8 times. So 8 times 5 is 40. And I subtract that. So I multiplied 5 times 8. That's where I got my 40 by multiplying. Now I'm going to subtract the 40 from the 42, which gives me 2. I'm going to compare. That number is smaller than that, but it's not a 0 yet. So I'm going to look, I've got a number to bring down. I'm going to bring down a number, and that gives me 20. So now I'm going to go back up here to divide again. 5 will go into 20 how many times? 4. 4 times 5 is 20. Then I'm going to subtract, and I get 0, and now I'm finished. And my quotient, or my answer for this division problem, is 84. So that is division, what we call without a remainder. Now sometimes this last number will not be a 0, and there will not be another number to bring down, and then we call that a remainder. Okay, so let's go back and try one with that. I'm going to erase these. I think hopefully you've got these steps written down here. We're going to erase this now and give us a little more room to work. And I'm just going to pick a random number. I'm going to go 83 divided by 7. Okay, so 7 on the outside, 83 divided by 7. Well, 7, now this is interesting. 7 will go into 8. Okay, so we're going to put our 1 here. It'll go 1 times. 1 times 7 is 7. We're going to subtract, and we got 1. Well, now we've got a number to bring down. It's a 3. Okay, so we got a 13. Now, since we did have a number to bring down here, we're not finished yet. We've got to figure out, we've got to divide it. How many times will 7 go into 13? Well, you know, it'll go at least once. Will it go twice? Well, if I put 2 up there, 7 times 2 is 14. Well, that's going to be a problem because it's going to be too big. So it's only going to go 1 time. Okay, 1 times 7 is 7. So I put my 7 here. I would subtract, and that would give me an answer of 6. I mean, now I could do all this, you know, I have to borrow, you know, there for that. Okay, 7 from 13 is 6. So now I've got a 6. I have nothing to bring down here. This number is smaller than this number, so I can't divide it again. So this is just called my remainder. And what I do is I just put an R here, and I put a 6. So the answer to this problem, 83 divided by 7, the answer is 11 with a remainder of 6. Let's do another one like that, and then I'll show you how to check these. So let's go with 132 divided by 4. Okay, so I'm going to put my 132 here. My division box, so I'm going to put a 4 out there. Will 4 go into 1? No, 4 will not go into 1. Will 4 go into 13? Yes. How many times? Well, it'll go at least twice. That's 8. Well, what about 3 times? Well, 3 times is only 12, so it would go 3 times. Will it go 4 times? Well, 4 times 4 is 16. That's going to be too many. So you want the largest number without going over. In this case, it's going to be 3 times. Now, if you happen to put 4 here when you're doing your work, if it's a bigger number and you don't know, you put a 4 here and you go 4 times 4 is 16. We'll look at our step down here, compare the difference. When you subtract, well, you can't subtract the 16 from the 13, so you know that this is too big, so that number's got to be smaller than that. Okay. Or if you did the other way, if you did 2 times, and you went 2 times 4 is 8, and you subtracted that, you would end up with a 6. Well, when you compare the difference with the divisor, this number is bigger than that, and we don't want that. This number has to be smaller, so we can't have that. So you know that number's not big enough, so it's got to be the 3. So that's why I say sometimes you might have to use a little trial and error, but if you don't. All right, so 3 times 4 is 12. We subtract, we get 1. Okay? Now we've got a number to bring down, so we can bring that number down. That's going to be a 2. 4 will go into 12. How many times? Well, 3 times. 3. So 3 times 4 is 12. And we'll subtract 0. We don't have a remainder this time. Okay? But that's that problem. Okay? Let's do 109 divided by 5. So I'm going to put a 109 here. I'm going to do a division box. I'm going to put a 5 out here. 5 will not go into 1. 5 will go into 10. How many times? We'll go 2 times. Oh, it goes evenly. So 2 times 5 is 10. I subtract, it's 0. I'm going to bring down my 9. Now, 5 will go into 9. See, I said this number had to be smaller than that one, but if this number's bigger, that means we just have to keep going. 5 will go into 9. How many times? It'll go 1 time. So we put a 1 over the 9, which is what we brought down. 1 times 5 is 9. We subtract, we got 4. Now this number is smaller than that number, and there's nothing else to bring down, so that will be our remainder. 21, remainder 4 would be the answer to that problem. Now there's a way to check these division problems. You can check these division problems by multiplying. So let's go with, 15 divided by 3. Well, let's do that. That's just something you can't do quite in your head that easily. Let's go with 88 divided by 4. Okay? So I'm going to put my 88. I'm going to divide it by 4. 4 will go into 8 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8. I'm going to subtract, it gives me 0. I've got 8 to bring down. 4 will go into that 8 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8 again. I subtract and I have 0. Now, 22 times, your answer times this number should answer this number. So if I take my answer, which is 22, and I multiply it by this number, which is 4, that should give me this number. Well, 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 2 is 8. That gives me 88. And that is correct. If I multiply this and I don't come up with this number, then somewhere in here I've made a mistake. $57 divided by 3. So I'm going to put my 3 out here, my 57 in the box, and let's start this process. 3 will go into 5 one time. 1 times 3 is 3. I'm going to subtract, and that's 2. I'm going to bring down my 7. So 3 will go into 27 9 times. 9 times 3 is 27. I subtract, I've got 0. There's nothing else to bring down. So this number times this number should equal this number. So let's see if it does. 19 times 3 equals 3 times 9 is 27. I put my 7. I carry my 2. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2 is 5. 57. Oh, it works. Anytime you need to pause these videos to write these examples down, to look at them a little bit, you can. I'm just going, after I do them, I'm going quickly so I can show you many examples before you have to sit and do your work. When you start doing your work, sometimes it's good to go back and watch this video again, some of these examples. It looks real easy when somebody's working a math problem, and then when you sit down to do it, it's like, oh, I don't remember all my steps, and it makes it a little difficult. All right, so let's try another one here. 48 divided by 7. Okay, so I'm going to put a 7 here. I'm going to draw box 48. Well, 7 won't go into 4. So 7 will go into 48, but not evenly. What's the most that it will go into it? I believe it's 6. 6 times 7 is 42. I'm going to subtract, and that leaves me a 6. Well, this number is smaller than this number, and there's nothing else to bring down, so that would be my remainder. Remainder 6. So how do we check this? You still take your number, you multiply it by this number, and the remainder is added, not multiplied. So I would go 7 times 6, well, that equals 42. And then I would add my remainder plus 6, would be 48. And that checks out with that. And that's how you know. So you multiply this part of the quotient with your number, and then you add the remainder. Okay, and that all right. One more problem, and then you can work on some of yours. So let's go with 79 divided by, we'll just say 2. Okay, so 79 divided by 2. 2 will go into 7. It will go into 7. It'll go 3 times. 3 times 2 is 6. I'm going to subtract. I'm going to get 1. That number is smaller than that one, but I have one to bring down, so I'm going to bring that one down. 2 will go into 19. How many times? 8. 8 times, excuse me. Well, here's a good example. 8 times 2 is 16. That wouldn't have worked, because if I wrote 16, I would have subtracted out 3. Well, that number is bigger than that one, and there's nothing to bring down. So that's a mistake. That should have been a 9. 9 times 2 is 18, and then I subtract that, and it's 1. Okay, there's nothing else to bring down, so that would be my remainder. Remainder 1. 39, remainder 1. Now, if I wanted to check it, I would multiply the 39 by the 2, and I would add the 1, and it would come up to the 79. Let's do one more. I said that was the last. I'm going to do one more with some longer numbers. Because you can have longer numbers. 345 divided by 6. So I put 345. We've got 3 numbers here divided by 6. So 6 will not go into 3. Well, actually, yeah, 6 will not go into 3. 6 will go into 34. How many times? What's the most 6 will go into 34 without going over? Well, that would be 5 times. 5 times 6 is 30. I subtract, and that gives me 4. Well, 4 is smaller than 6, which is good, so I'm going to bring my 5 down. Now, how many times will 6 go into 45 without going over? That would go 7 times. 7 times 6 is 42. You subtract that, that's supposed to be 4, doesn't look like it, and it gives you 3. Now this number is lower than this number, and there's nothing else to bring down, so that would be my remainder, would be 3. So we could check it by multiplying the 57 by the 6 and adding the 3, and it should come up with that. So let's try that. 57 multiplied by 6 is 7 times 6 is 42. So I put my 2, I carry my 4. 6 times 5 is 30, plus the 4 is 34. So 342. Now I'm going to put my remainder 3. I'm going to add my 3. 3 times 2 is 5, and then I'll just bring down my 4 and my 3, so that checks out. So that is division. So that's something that you'll do many problems like this. It's called long division, and these numbers can get much longer, and we'll be practicing more with that later on.